Can featherweight king Jose Aldo make it 7 title defenses in a row, or will the Korean Zombie put an end to his impressive streak? UFC welterweight Mike Pyle versus a fan. Who wins our verbal sparring match and leaves the virtual cage the champ? And what do you really need to know about the UFC 163 fight card in Brazil? All will be revealed, as well as Phil Davis answering the call of the Octagon in an exclusive interview presented by Sony PlayStation right here on Fight Day. Thanks for joining us for Fight Day, presented by Sony PlayStation. Greatness awaits. I'm Alison Haislip. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil is the place to be this week. Or every week, but I digress. The home to coconut cocktails and skimpy bikinis is playing host to UFC 163. And countryman Jose Aldo will be putting his 15-fight win streak on the line versus Chan Sung Jung. We here at Fight Day can't send you to paradise to watch the fights, but we can do our part to boost your MMA smarts. So without further ado, here's what you need to know. UFC 163 will air live on pay-per-view this Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, and features a title fight between Jose Aldo and the Korean Zombie. Also on the card is a battle of light heavyweight powerhouses Lyoto Machida and Phil Davis. Expect whoever wins to be very vocal and lobbying his case for the #1 contender spot. And finally, all 12 fights on the UFC 163 card feature at least one Brazilian fighter. Half of the 12 fights square off Brazil versus the US, with fighters from Germany, England, Australia, and Korea also on the card. Odds of off-color chance in Portuguese? Very likely. Okay, by now you know who is in the main event Saturday, but you might not know how they got there. We're about to drop a ton of knowledge on you as we debate who's the man. If it were a battle of nicknames, this fight would already be over. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than the Korean Zombie. But this one will be decided with punches and kicks. And we call upon our experts to help us figure out who does all that better. Brett Okamoto of ESPN and Larry Pepe of Pro MMA Radio and Fox Sports Radio. Okay, Brett, you are repping Jose Aldo for 3 rounds. Larry, you have got Chan Sung Jung. 20 seconds per round, 1 minute total to make your case. Round 1 of Who's the Man? Brett, go.
Well, the first thing I'm going to talk about with Jose Aldo, the first thing you always bring up when you're talking about him is power. When this guy comes out and he stands in the center of the octagon, he's just got that intimidating stance, like he's going to knock you out. In this case, I think that's probably a good prediction for this fight. He's just got too much horsepower for Korean Zombie, too much horsepower in his takedown defense, in his punches, the electricity in his...
You are done. Larry, your 20 seconds.
Biggest advantage for Korean Zombie is his cardio. He's relentless. He got that nickname because of his ability to keep coming forward, take punishment, and keep coming forward. Jose Aldo, on the other hand, since he's gotten to the UFC, we see him slow as the fight goes on. Zombie gets better. The longer it goes, the better his chances in this fight.
Larry, you're cut. Brett, you're 20.
Well, it's going to sound like I'm describing a car. First power, but now speed. But that's what Jose Aldo brings to the table. And Korean Zombie really isn't that fast. He's not a dynamic, fast featherweight. What he does is he comes out and he's a little bit awkward. I think that speed advantage is going to play out really big time in terms of combinations that Aldo's throwing his way to move around the cage, to use that footwork to get away from what Korean Zombie wants.
Done. Larry, another 20.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When you look at the submissions, look, we hear a lot about Jose Aldo being this high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's got 2 submissions in his life, and he hasn't had one in 8 years. Korean Zombie has had 2 submissions in his last 3 fights in the UFC, including the first ever twister in the UFC, and he has a submission of the night on his record as well.
Larry, done. Brett, final 20. Go.
Well, Larry's actually helping me out because Korean Zombie may have good jiu-jitsu, but how's he going to use it if he never gets the fight to the ground? And Jose Aldo has terrific takedown defense. It goes back to the first 2 things I was talking about, power and speed. It's just difficult to get this guy to the ground. We think of Korean Zombie as a brawler, but I think the best way for him to win this fight is to get it to the ground, and you're not going to get the fight to the ground against Aldo. He's just too dynamic.
Oh, Larry, final 20. Take us home.
Brett, he gets it to the ground when Aldo's cardio fades. WEC Aldo, 7 finishes in 8 fights, an average fight time of under 8 minutes. UFC Aldo, 1 finish in 4 fights, an average fight time of almost 20 minutes. With that kind of time, Zombie's cardio can take over, and he can get Aldo to the ground.
Whew, nice job. Jose Aldo, Chan Sung Jung, one fighter will leave the octagon down in Brazil as the man. Thank you guys, that was awesome. We'll see both of you back on a little later. Now joining us on set is a fighter that is definitely the man, a mullet mohawk sporting UFC veteran who just this past Friday became a father for the first time, Q Oz. Mike Quicksand Pyle. It's time for a little fan versus fighter.
Allison, just for future reference, it's a Tennessee waterfall.
The mohawk mullet is a Tennessee waterfall?
No, it's a Tennessee waterfall.
It's just a Tennessee waterfall.
Plain and simple.
My apologies.
No problem.
This is a New Jersey angled, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Let's introduce our fan, shall we? It is Jason Mahoney, who you've been watching UFC since when?
Since I was a little kid, when I had a mullet, much like Mr. Pyle over there. We were bootlegging.
Tennessee waterfall.
No, it was a Missouri mullet where I came from, and we were bootlegging UFC VHS for years and years because we were too poor to buy it on pay-per-view, but I've been around since the beginning.
All right, guys, we are not here to discuss hairstyles. We're here to discuss UFC, so let's get on with it. First topic, with a win Saturday, should Jose Aldo make the jump to lightweight? Mahoney, you're first.
Absolutely. We want to see super fights as fans. This is an opportunity for us to see one of the best guys at 145 to move up to 155 and be absolutely competitive. We want to see this.
Well, you're a fan, I'm a fighter. So, when you're winning, it's a good thing. Jose's winning. Stay there. Nobody's making GSP go anywhere. Why are they picking on Jose?
Whatever his name is.
Whatever his name is, he's doing his thing. Leave him alone.
Well, one of the good things as a fighter that you want to do besides win is make money, and then moving up to 155 is going to make Jose Aldo a lot of money.
Money makes sense, so they got to come right for the money, but if they don't, stay where you're at, man.
All right, next topic. Should the winner of the co-main event between Lyoto Machida and Phil Davis be next in line for a title shot? Mike, you take this one.
Sure, I say so. I think they should. Phil's made his way up. Machida's, dropped the ball a couple times, but who else is there to fight for the title right now?
I think you're half right, much like your haircut, But if Phil Davis wins, I think he should deserve a title shot because we haven't seen him fight John Jones. I think it brings new blood into the pool. But if Machida wins, I think he needs to have another fight maybe against Mousasi or somebody else because we've already seen what happens when he fights John Jones. He loses. And just as a fan of the 205-pound division, which has been the marquee division for the UFC for years and years, I think, we want to see people run through that.
All right, Mahoney, you're up first here. Tito Ortiz hints at a comeback as a fighter. Good idea or not so much?
I think it's a good idea. I think if he gets cleared medically by the doctors, I think he should come back. I don't think anybody out there should tell another grown man if he should or should not fight if he's cleared medically. He's a grown man. He makes his own choices. Who are we to tell him not to?
I disagree. I think that since 2006, he's won one fight. Stay on the shelf, Tito. You've done it. You did great for the sport, and you attracted a lot of fans. But you went out on a downhill slope. So I would say stay.
I think that stat may be a little bit deceiving. Yes, he has only won one fight since 2006, but the majority of those fights were very competitive. And I think as a grown man, would you let somebody else tell you when you should hang up your gloves?
No, of course not. But I can easily sit here and say that he shouldn't fight, though. It's easy for me.
It's safe from the chair.
Yeah, safe from the chair.
All right, our final topic. Cyborg Santos gets another win in Invicta, improving her record to 12-1 after Ronda beats up Miesha Tate again at UFC 168. Is that the fight to make, Mike?
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I don't follow the women's fighting as much as I should. It's getting very popular.
Maybe you need to start.
Yeah, maybe I should, but I like to watch fights.
Ooh, okay. Jason.
I think that is the fight to make when it comes to the women's division. That's the two biggest known female fighters. And I don't know. I don't want to be put in the ring with either one of them because they would kick my ass. Yeah, I think you'd call that fighting.
Oh boy. All right. Well, thanks, guys. And Mike, we appreciate you being here for Fan versus Fighter.
Thanks for having me.
With your Tennessee waterfall.
Thank you.
Now we shift focus to Southern California, which is where the Fight Day cameras traveled to sit down with light heavyweight contender Phil Davis as he prepares for one of the toughest challenges of his career, traveling to Brazil to face former champion Lyoto Machida. Here's Phil Davis, who shows us that greatness is worth fighting for in the Call of the Octagon, brought to us by Sony PlayStation. Greatness awaits.
On this episode of Call of the Octagon, we profile NCAA wrestling champion and light heavyweight contender Phil Davis, whose near-perfect 11-1 UFC record shows that greatness is worth fighting for. The Call of the Octagon is brought to you by Sony PlayStation. Greatness is worth fighting for. PlayStation. Greatness awaits.
Since I decided to get into mixed martial arts, I always knew I was going to be a champion. My plan from day one was get that belt.
Davis's only defeat at the hands of former UFC light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans was a critical psychological challenge for the young fighter.
Well, really what I learned at that from the Rashad Evans loss was just that I didn't have enough time in the gym. Rashad Evans is a former champion. He was the #1 contender at the time. He already knew his body, he knew his limitations. He had his skill set already down pat, and I didn't. I was still learning. I didn't have a set 1, 2, 3 in every position. Every position you end up in, you have to be able to go to a good move.
Davis's development as a fighter is a disciplined approach to mind and body.
I walked across the national championship podium, and about 2.5 weeks after that, I was training twice a day. And it's only in pursuit of perfection that you really get really good at something. I got a lot of stuff to work on. My speed, my timing, my distance, my footwork, and I'm talking about my wrestling there. I'm not even talking about, you know, my stand-up. I've only been punching for about 3 or 4 years. It takes a lot of time in the gym to outclass a guy who's been doing this longer than I have. Your mindset when you're in that octagon, it needs to be focused, but it can't be narrow. You need to be broad enough in your focus that you can pull every technique from your training and go to it and just continue to flow, not taking in external things such as the crowd, the other guys' coaches. I'll hear something from the crowd. That's a reminder, like, focus in on exactly what I'm trying to punch, exactly the technique I'm trying to execute.
We asked Davis what the greatest moment of his career has been.
Winning my first fight in the UFC. Part of me said, this is for me. This sport is for me. This is what I want to do. I want to own this sport when I get to it. And then I had those little demons of doubt. First fight in the UFC, I fought Brian Stann, and he was a guy I've been watching for a long time. So for me, it was very, either I'm going to win this fight and I'm going to be a champion, or I might hang it up all in one night. And you know, I had a good performance. I put everything into it, and I came out.
When we come back, we explore the physical demands of Davis's road to UFC fighter. Next on Call of the Octagon is brought to you by Sony PlayStation. Greatness is worth fighting for. PlayStation. Greatness awaits.
Coming up on Fight Day, we'll bring you another installment of Fighting Fails, and our experts are back to debate who's the man, Lyoto Machida or Phil Davis. Don't go anywhere. Fight Day will be right back.
Who are you not to be great? You, with the imagination of a brilliant child and the powers of an ancient god. Who are you to be ordinary? You, who can rescind life or raise the dead. Who are you to be afraid? You, who can serve as judge and jury while hoarding infinite lives. Who are you to be a slave to the past? You who can travel time like the oceans and rewrite history with a single word. Who are you to be anonymous? You, whose name should be spoken in reverent tones or in terrified whispers. And who are you to deny greatness? If you would deny to yourself, you deny to the entire world. And we will not be denied.
Welcome back back to fight day. We're gearing up for UFC 163, a card that features a 145-pound title fight, as well as a potential #1 contender fight in the co-main event when Lyoto Machida and Phil Davis square off. But now we've got more Who's the Man? Here to debate who's the man once again are Brett Okamoto and Larry Pepe. All right, Larry, you've got Lyoto Machida for 3 rounds. Brett, you're repping Mr. Wonderful, Phil Davis. 20 seconds per round, and Larry, you are up first this time. Your time starts now.
All right, this is an easy one. Striking. Lyoto Machida is unhittable unless your name is Shogun Hua. He has 4 knockouts. Phil Davis has none, and he is virtually impossible to hit. A great counter striker with power. Davis will be chasing him around, trying to hit him, and like most wrestlers who fight Lyoto, he won't.
All right, time's up. Brett.
Well, I agree with Larry. Striking does go to Lyoto Machida, but one thing about Phil Davis' striking, he's always been very natural at protecting himself. Even when he was awkward throwing punches and throwing kicks, he always had a natural tendency to get his hands up, to get out of the way, to dictate a little bit of range, and that's important because this fight is going to start on the feet. 1 round, 2 round, 3 round, however long it goes, it's going to be on Phil Davis to get the fight to the ground. But while he's standing...
Larry, take us to round 2.
Well, the problem with getting the fight to the ground is that Lyoto Machida has great takedown defense. He has a 79% takedown defense in his UFC career. The only guy who's really taken him down and hurt him was John Jones. I'm not sure if that even counts anymore. He is very difficult to get your hands on, whether you're trying to hit him or trying to take him down. It's going to make it tough for Phil to get it to the ground.
All right, Brett, 20 to you.
You always talk about confidence when we're talking about mixed martial arts. It's almost a cliche thing to bring up, but I think it's important when you're fighting Lyoto Machida because it's very rare that you're going to have a Shogun moment where Shogun comes out and knocks him out early in the fight. Phil Davis, if he wins this, is going to be a grind. It's going to be a lot of little battles sticking to the game plan. And I think Phil, he likes himself. Phil Davis is a Phil Davis fan. He's been a winner his entire life. I think he's got...
Beep. Larry, final 20.
Brett, if Phil Davis is confident, he has not looked at Lyoto Machida's record against wrestlers. Unfortunately, in the UFC, he's 5-1 against wrestlers. He's knocked 3 of them unconscious, and the only one that he's lost to is John Jones, and like I said before, I'm not sure that counts anymore.
All right, finish us up, Brett.
Size matters, guys, and it does matter in a fight. And Lyoto Machida has never really had a problem fighting bigger guys, but in certain situations in this fight, I think Phil Davis can use his size to his advantage. If you remember, Rampage Jackson was able to cut off the cage against Lyoto Machida and keep him there. Phil Davis can use that size, that athleticism advantage that he's going to have over Machida. If he gets him to the ground, Machida's just going to disappear under this guy. It's going to be very difficult.
Last time! Woo! Getting in right under the gun. Who's the man, Phil Davis or Lyoto Machida? We'll find out in the co-main of UFC 163. Now, here on Fight Day, we want to keep you in the know of all the happenings in the MMA world, and we do this with trending topics. UFC 168 will take place in Las Vegas on December 28th at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. And Ronda Rousey versus Miesha Tate has been bumped from the main event to co-main to make room for the rematch between middleweight champ Chris Weidman, who it still feels weird saying that, and former champion Anderson Silva. Chris Weidman shocked the world by knocking out Silva at UFC 162. Here was the reaction from Weidman after his win.
It's crazy, man. I would think that at this point I'd be able to just sit back and relax. Instantly, I'm already like, I'm freaking hungry, man. I gotta get better. I feel like I still didn't really look at my best. So I'm just really excited to go back out there and freaking keep holding on this belt as long as I possibly can.
UFC on Fox 8 went down last weekend, and we saw Demetrius Johnson successfully defend his flyweight belt against John Moraga. But perhaps the biggest story of the night was the lackluster performance put on by both Rory McDonald and Jake Ellenberger. UFC President Dana White expressed his disappointment with both fighters in the post-fight presser, saying, quote, "Lorenzo texted me and said, 'This is terrible.' I texted him back and said, 'Ellenberger's freezing. He froze tonight. I don't know why, but he did. And when he froze, Rory did nothing.' White went on to say, 'It's not good for anybody. It's not good for him. It's not good for us. It's not good for the sport. Not good for Fox. Definitely not good for pay-per-view.'" And finally, one more good guy in the sport of MMA is calling it quits. All-American Brian Stann and that impressive jawline have stepped into the UFC cage for the final time as a fighter. He announced his retirement from the sport a couple of weeks ago to focus full-time on his duties as a husband, father, and broadcaster. Here's what Brian told MMA Fighting's The MMA Hour.
Really, a couple months ago, I had made the decision and just really wasn't sure about when I was going to announce it, but that I was no longer going to continue fighting. And so I wanted to use this opportunity to to really say thank you. The relationships and the experiences that I've gotten, honestly, have just made me a much better person. And there's a lot of reasons, obviously, that have caused me to retire from the sport. But as far as competing anymore, as sad as it makes me, it's not the best thing for me as a husband and father, which ultimately for me is by far the most important thing in my life, and that's the most important job I have.
Look for Brian as a college football analyst for Fox Sports, as well as in an expanded analyst role for the UFC. Now it's back to Southern California, where we see that greatness is worth fighting for in part 2 of the Call of the Octagon with Phil Davis, presented by Sony PlayStation. Greatness awaits.
Next on Call of the Octagon, Davis's road to UFC greatness is hard fought and won.
College wrestling prepared me for mixed martial arts. It's an individual sport. I was the guy who had to lose the most weight on my team. So my coach would just send me to the gym to lose my weight. And that's something that guys just don't have the discipline to do in MMA. I'm just used to being the only one in the gym, sweating until I can't stand.
Davis's family is his foundation.
I wouldn't say it's one person. I'd say it's my whole family has sacrificed a lot to support my wrestling career, support my MMA career. I mean, they know I love them, but you know, they've sacrificed a lot to support me. When I win, that's a good feeling for everybody.
Davis's road to being a champion in the Octagon is a personal journey of discovery.
Ups and downs are a part of life. Life ebbs and flows. You just got to appreciate the things that you have and you know, continue to do the right things and not to get discouraged. And you know, when you're up, you got to remember to be thankful for all your friends and family and all the things that helped you to get to where you're at.
Davis's upcoming fight against UFC legend Lyoto Machida is a critical test in his development. A win could lead to a title shot.
People ask me, how much pressure is there on you going into Rio and fighting a guy that's a former champion in his hometown? The best thing you can do is just stay focused on one thing, and that's just fighting this guy. You know, don't take in all these external things that could be perceived as negative. You know, is it his hometown? I don't know where he grew up. I don't care where he grew up. What does that have to do with fighting? You know, nothing. Doesn't matter if it's in Las Vegas or if it's in Rio. The Octagon's the same Octagon. Just staying calm, staying relaxed, and not letting people, you know, put ideas in your head that don't exist. I don't expect a whole lot. My job is to beat Lyoto, and that is it. One job. You score, you win. You win, you get your hand raised.
Davis faces his biggest challenge at UFC 163, where he will show that greatness is worth fighting for. The Call of the Octagon is brought to you by Sony PlayStation. Greatness is worth fighting for. PlayStation. Greatness awaits.
Coming up on Fight Day, show you some of the not-so-great moments in MMA history in another installment of Fighting Fails. Fight Day, we'll be right back.
Who are you not to be great? You, with the imagination of a brilliant child and the powers of an ancient god. Who are you to be ordinary? You, who can rescind life or raise the dead. Who are you to be afraid? You, who can serve as judge and jury while hoarding infinite lives. Who are you to be a slave to the past? You who can travel time like the oceans and rewrite history with a single word. Who are you to be anonymous? You, whose name should be spoken in reverent tones or in terrified whispers. Who are you to deny greatness? If you would deny to yourself, you deny to the entire world. And we will not be denied.
PlayStation
Welcome back to Fight Day. When you think of truly great fighters, names like George St. Pierre, John Jones, and Anderson Silva come to mind. But in order for them to be great, there has to be those who aren't. And that brings us to fighting fails. Man versus dummy. When the opposition doesn't fight back and also doesn't possess a heartbeat, you would assume that man would have the edge in that particular scenario. Well, you know what they say about assuming.
You want me to show you tough? I'll show you tough. Hey! 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 Hey!
Most of you already know that the fighters that grace the UFC octagon are, without a doubt, the toughest men on the planet. But there's always going to be those that need to prove just how tough they are, despite their lack of any real skill. As this next clip shows, you really should leave this fighting thing to the professionals.
Go. Take time. Oh, shit. Danny, you alright? Danny. Take out the gloves. Fuck. Danny, right here. Oh, shit.
Now, one of the ways fighters get to express themselves is through their walkouts. From the antics of Tom Lawler to the sheer awesomeness that Akiyama brings, some walkouts are as memorable as the fights themselves. Such is the case in this next clip, but for all the wrong reasons. If your walkout is twice as long as your fight, you better come out on the good end, or you live in YouTube infamy like this guy.
Boxers, I'm the referee. I spoke to you both in the dressing room. Obey my command at all times. You both know the rules. Watch the heads, kick the punches up. And I shout break.
Thank you guys at home for being with us on this episode of Fight Day, presented by Sony PlayStation. Greatness awaits. UFC 163 comes to you live this Saturday on pay-per-view at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. For everyone that helped make Fight Day possible, I'm Alison Haislip. Enjoy the fights.